In the winter of 1888, one of the worst blizzards in the history of the United States came down through the Midwest. It started up in Montana and Minnesota, worked its way down to North Dakota, South Dakota, into Nebraska, and even into parts of Kansas. It was called the children's blizzard, or the schoolhouse blizzard, because it hit in the middle of the day when many children were trying to make their way home. Well, many children perished in that storm. Many children. But many children also survived due to the heroic acts of teachers. The most famous of these is Minnie Mae Freeman up in Nebraska. I was just 19 years of age. 19 years of age when I was teaching in that one-room sod school up by Ord, Nebraska. Now, Ord, Nebraska, it's almost at the very center of Nebraska. I had started out coming to school that morning, and it was beautiful. 40 degrees weather. This was like January 12th in 1888. The weather was beautiful for January, especially in Nebraska. 40-degree weather, snow and ice were melting. I saw some of the children didn't even have hats or mittens on. Many of them just had light coats. Well, I was at recess that day, that afternoon, watching the children play, and I saw off in the distance this blue stripe in the horizon. I'd seen it before. It was a blue norther. Now, blue northers, they're blizzards, storms that strike with unexpected force and with high winds, just like a hurricane, but with snow and ice. I could feel the temperature dropping already. I knew how quickly things could change. I gathered the 13 children I had that day into the little schoolhouse. I told them that they were going to have to wait, not go home that day. We were going to wait it out. I said, there's a blizzard coming. I did not want to risk them going home. Well, of course, the children did not like that at all. They wanted to leave and get home. But I knew we needed to wait in that school, not risk it. Well, I went back to the door and looked out, and the other children came with me. Already that blue stripe had turned white. And as we stood there, we could hear a freight train. Sound of a freight train. And that blue stripe got bigger and bigger, and then we could see snow and ice billowing hundreds of feet into the air coming right at us. I shut the door. I could feel the temperature dropping again. I told the children to put on your hats and mittens if you have them. Put on your coats if you have them. I got my coat on and my mittens and hat. I put more coal in the stove. At that point, the storm struck with its fullest force. Bam! The school door blew in. Now later I'd heard the winds were 60 to 100 miles per hour, and it must have been so. That door just got blown in off of its leather hinges. Two of the bigger boys and I, we put that door back up into the wooden frame, but we couldn't get it to stay. I had a toolbox in the room. I got a hammer and nails, and we nailed that door to that frame. I then went over to the window to try to see out. It was totally white out blizzard, and I was patting myself on the back, telling myself how proud I was not to let those children go out in this. But Mother Nature had other plans for us. A few minutes later, we could hear the blow of the wind outside howling even stronger, and then the roof on this little sod schoolhouse we had started to vibrate. And then, in a matter of minutes, that one corner of that roof blew up, pulled away by the wind, and it blew away, and more snow and ice were coming into the school. Little children, they were crying in terror. At that point, I knew we couldn't stay there. We had to do something. Now, I was boarding in a farmhouse just 3/4 of a mile down the road. That was our only hope. We had to get to that farmhouse. I went to the boys and I told them to take the nails out of the door, but hold the door, stay there. I gathered the children over to the door, and then I went to my desk. I had a roll of stout twine in my desk, and I went back over to the children at the door, and I lined them up 2 by 2 by 2. Then I began to wind the twine around each child and the 2 boys, and then I wrapped the rest of the twine around my arm. I knew we could wait no longer. We had to go out. But before going out, I said, we will all have to stick together. That's why I've tied us together like this. We will have to stay together. Now, I want you all to hold of the person ahead of you. Grab hold of the person ahead of you and don't let go. Don't let go. Now, we're going to go out and we can make it to the farmhouse where I'm staying. I know we can make it to the farmhouse. They were looking up at me with such trust. I didn't know if we could make it to the farmhouse. I told them, if one of you has to rub cold hands, has to stop, we will all stop and wait. If one of you falls, we will have to pick you up and keep you with the group. We have to stick together. I then signaled for the boys to push the door aside, and the wind came in. I've never felt anything like it. And out we went into the storm. Now, I knew the wind was coming the direction of where the farmhouse lay. I couldn't see anything, but we just kept marching into that storm, straight directly into the wind. I thought if we could just go directly into the wind, we could find the farmhouse. It seemed to take forever. Every once in a while, somebody would fall. At one point, I had to pick up a little 6-year-old girl who couldn't keep going and carry her. And at one time, I couldn't see anything. I began to panic. Are we in the right direction? Are we going to the right place? Where are we? And then suddenly, at that moment, the snow lifted, and there was the farmhouse. We went as quick as we could. We made it to the front door of that farmhouse, and we got inside. All collapsed. Some of us were weeping. We were all shivering from the cold. The farmer and his wife, they cut that twine from us, and after we'd all calmed down and were settled in, they brought us cups of warm soup. They spread straw out on the floor of the farmhouse and brought out coats and blankets, whatever they could find to lay down, and we all spent the night there. By next morning, that storm had lifted, and by dawn, the parents had arrived. They were expecting us to have perished in the storm. But when they saw us all there safe in the farmhouse, they said it must have been providence. And it must have been because just a mile down the road, a farmer who was trying to get from his barn to the front door of his house, 150 feet, lost his way and froze to death. Ever since then, at every barn dance or family gathering or 4th of July celebration, there'd always be 1 or 2 people there with missing fingers, missing ears or nose, a foot gone from the frostbite they suffered in that terrible storm. I'd heard over 200 died in Nebraska in that blizzard, most of them children. Minnie Mae Freeman.